talked a lot about fairly simple virtual tabletops, but I keep mentioning how I personally use FoundryVTT, a considerably more robust tabletop with what is, for some, an off-putting learning curve. So I'd like to take a few minutes to help the Foundry curious out there get started with this hopefully quick basics guide to running and to a lesser degree playing games on Foundry. First off, I'll just tell you that I rent a Foundry server from FoundryServer.com. It's $6 a month and means I don't have to host the server with my less than amazing internet. But you can just host it yourself, you just might have to port forward or something, which I hate figuring out. Sorry. Before you make a game world, find the system you're going to be using. We'll stick with D&D for this video. Just click install and install. Done. Now create a world, give it a name, file directory, and the game system. Now hop on in. One of the first things you might need for your game would be characters. The actors directory is where you will keep your players, non-player characters, monsters, and various horses. Now, if you make a player character, you can manually enter and adjust pretty much any value on their character sheet. Their attributes, inventory, features, spells, and so on are all in tabs on here. Now with D&D, the nice thing is instead of manually entering everything, you can pull stuff in from the Compendiums tab, and anything with an icon or in a box you can just drag onto the character sheet. Drag the class onto the sheet and boom, it's there. Drag a feature from the class description onto the character sheet and you've got it. Go to the items compendium, drag on a sword and a metal sweater, there you go. On the character sheet, you can also click on this token button to upload and change the token that will be used on maps, and even make certain stats like HP visible on the token. Now, if you're making a monster from scratch, the NPC sheet is a little more simplified, but you can still drag whatever you want onto it to build the monster of your dreams. Or you can grab any of the pre-made monsters from the SRD, and it's as easy as dragging them from the Monster Compendium into the Actors tab, or directly onto a scene. Speaking of, scenes are where you will set up your various battle maps or just background images your players all get to stare at. First, let's create a scene. Give it a name, then set a background image, which will be your map. You could make tiled maps, but I don't know, I think this is just a little more simple to start with. Just upload a map from your computer, kind of like the maps available on my Patreon for only $1 a month. Wait for it to upload if you're on a server, click the OKs, and boom, a map where the grid on Foundry doesn't match up with the grid on the map. No problem. Right-click on the scene, either in the tab or up here, configure, and click this Measure button. Hold down Shift, use the scroll wheel to get the grids closer to aligning, adjust the little numbers until they perfectly match up, and commit those changes. Now, depending on the maps you make or use, you may need to play around with this a bit to really figure it out. Now that you've got a map, you can drag players and monsters onto the map as tokens, and they'll fit perfectly. The last big map option you should be familiar with is global illumination, which will determine if either the whole map is lit up or if it's dark and therefore the token's vision needs to be set to see how far out they are allowed to see. You can also just turn token vision off so players can see everything on the map, not taking into consideration their token's line of sight. But if you do want to use the token's line of sight, one of the bigger features of Foundry, you'll need to know about walls will restrict a token's vision and/or movement. You select the wall button on the left side, and then you just click and drag to make walls. Now make sure that the endpoints connect, as gaps can lead to weird problems. And quick tip, if you hold Control while placing walls, it will automatically start placing the next wall after you've placed one, so they're all automatically connected. This is going to save you a lot of time if you're laying out walls for a huge map. Now, there are 6 types of walls. Normal walls block both vision and movement. Terrain walls are used to surround objects and show whatever is inside the walls to the players, but nothing beyond the walls. Also, the players cannot move past them. This is good for making things like large rocks or trees that you want the players to be able to see what it is, but not beyond it. Invisible walls block player movement, but not their line of sight. They're basically windows. Ethereal walls block players' line of sight, but not their movement. They're basically curtains or walls of smoke. Doors block vision and movement, but players can click on the door icon to effectively remove or replace the wall like a door. As the DM, you can right-click the door icon to lock and unlock it, thereby preventing players from opening it if you want to. Secret door walls are doors where the players can't see the door icon. It just looks like a normal wall to them. Only you, as the DM, can operate them. Okay, so we can make characters, scenes, and walls to enhance those scenes. Next, let's talk. So to enter combat, first you'll want to go to the Encounter tab. Now, since you're going to be using the Chat tab a lot, here's a tip. Right-click on just about any of the other tabs and they will pop out as little windows so you can have more than one open. Now, you can right-click tokens to add them to an encounter either individually or select multiple. Click the dice to roll initiative, click Begin Combat, off you go. To make an attack, you can open the character sheet, find the item, feature, or spell that you're going to attack with, click on the icon, and it will appear in the chat with buttons for attack, damage, and various other things like versatile damage, placing templates for area of effect, or buttons for saving throws that the targets of said attacks can click. As a player, if you don't want to be constantly opening and closing your character sheet to find your attacks, you can drag your most used icons onto your hotbar for easy access. If, as a player, you take damage or healing, you can right-click the amount in chat and select how to apply it directly to your character, instead of having to manually change it on your character sheet. Now, as the DM, if you right-click to apply damage or healing, whatever token or tokens that you have currently selected will be affected, so careful that you're damaging the right players. Also, you can pre-set up multiple combat encounters so they're ready to go ahead of time. You can also hide enemies both on the map and in the encounter tracker if your players shouldn't be aware of them. So we covered the basics of combat. What else should you know about? Okay, we're gonna do these quick. Items is where you can keep items from the compendium or unique ones that you have made. The Journal tab allows you to save written notes, pictures, whatever, and you can even drag them onto the map either to remind yourself or to reveal to players. The roll tables are random tables that you can make. Make them for loot, random encounters, whatever you want random tables for. Results of the roll will show up in chat. Audio playlist lets you upload music that, when played, both you and your players will hear. Now, in each of these tabs, you can also make folders to better organize, and if you're running a bigger campaign, do yourself a favor and make folders. Now, that's just about everything you need to know to get things ready for your players, but there's one last thing we need to set up. Now, let's go to the settings and click Configure Players. Here you can add players, give them passwords, and choose what level of player they are. From here, or in-game, you can manage permissions. Different levels of players have different permissions in-game, and you can choose just what those permissions are. You might want to make sure that your group can make their own players and tokens so you don't have to do that all for them. There are a lot of options. Once you decide what they can do, save and return, log back in. Now, every actor, compendium item, journal entry, all of these things have permissions. By default, your players can typically only see the stuff that you've drug onto the scenes. Everything you have made or added to your tabs is hidden from them. By right-clicking and choosing permissions, you can choose whether these items are visible just by name, with full character sheet details, or if a particular player owns something and therefore can control it, like, their own character. You can even set permissions differently for different players, so maybe only certain players are aware of certain things. This can be really useful because it allows you to create items, journal entries, and more that are by default hidden from your players, but you can change the permission at the right time in-game to reveal them to your players, like if they discover a hidden note or something. Now, as far as all the built-in basics, that's pretty much everything you need to know, but there is one more thing we should touch on. Foundry has mods, lots of mods, and adding them is as easy as finding one and installing it. Then you go into the settings, select which modules are active in this world in the Manage Modules section. You can then further adjust the settings of those modules in Configure Settings. Modules will allow you to do a lot. 3D dice, automate attack rolls, specialized character sheets. More than I could possibly list. Just make sure that they work, as sometimes if Foundry is up to date but the mod isn't, it might not work or even cause problems. This wasn't quite as quick as I'd hoped, but that's the price you pay when you want to use something with as many moving parts as Foundry. Still, I hope this covers enough basics to get you started. Maybe it showed you the depth and possibilities of Foundry that could take your game to the next level. Or maybe it showed you a system that is too complicated to be worth your time for the way you and your group like to play. And I don't know, maybe I'll do some live streams where I show how to use Foundry more. So, I don't know, let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. And in general, if you like this video, let me know. Maybe subscribe or be one of the few to caress the curves of that dreaded bell. Maybe check out the other videos I did on some other virtual tabletops if Foundry doesn't look like it's for you. I tweet, I Twitch, Lord knows I make other silly videos on MoJoMenace. It's all in the description below. God, I wanted to cover so much more in this video, but I was stuck trying to find a balance between like a quick, simple guide and something with enough depth to be worthwhile. I don't know. I don't know that I hit the mark here, but I'm gonna put it out there and hopefully it helps someone. Maybe not my best video. I have been talking about doing this Foundry video for over a month and I've rewritten it 3 times. And every time it seems to get maybe a little better, and I didn't want to rewrite it again, so here we are! This is the video. I'm tired.